But first, our focus group watched the State of the Union, and we measured their reactions to it in real time. And tonight we are joined by the group and pollster Frank Luntz. Frank?
I love it that we get to start with the American people rather than the politicians or pundits. So, word or phrase, describe what you saw tonight with the president's speech.
Same old Obama.
Same speech.
Pedantic.
A challenge for the Republicans to do better.
Disappointingly contradictory.
Groundhog Day with a retread of the same old lies and broken promises.
Hopeful.
So I want a show of hands. How many of you voted for Barack Obama but were still disappointed in today's speech? So we got 5 of you. I'm just curious, why were you disappointed?
Well, he didn't really cover any of the domestic issues that are really affecting our country. I just think he was filling it with a lot of clapping and stories, just talking a lot, but not really talking about anything.
Well, he did open up the speech, and I want to go to a clip. At the very beginning, when he talks about the state of America, this did not test that well. Let's take a look.
America, for all that we have endured, for all the grit and hard work required to come back, for all the tasks that lie ahead, know this: the shadow of crisis has passed, and the State of the Union is strong.
The State of the Union is strong, and almost none of you agreed with that. Why is he wrong?
There was a recent poll that was published that suggested that 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So that would contradict what the president is saying tonight. At the same time, at the top of the hour, Megyn Kelly pointed out that Yemen is in the process of falling, and yet the president seems to think that his policies are effective on terrorism.
We know that unemployment is down. We know that the economy is getting stronger. Why don't you believe the State of the Union is strong?
Well, for starters, because I look at what's happening to my savings, and I look at what's happening overall with the people around me, and it's harder for people to make a living. It's harder for people to go to the grocery store, for example, and buy things, notwithstanding China. And, I mean, there's very little that we seem to be able to do based upon politics to fix this.
Quick question. How many of you believe that Washington, in general, and President Obama understand you, understand your life, understand your concerns? Raise your hands. Not one of you. Half of you voted for him, and not one of you believe that he understands you. Now, there's a second clip that I want to play because it deals with terrorism. And in this case, it's split between Republicans and Democrats. You're not so sure that we're winning the war on terrorism. Let's take a look.
We stand united with people around the world who've been targeted by terrorists, from a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris. We will continue to hunt down terrorists and dismantle their networks, and we reserve the right to act unilaterally, as we have done relentlessly since I took office, to take out terrorists who pose a direct threat to us and our allies.
Now, you're divided on whether we're winning the war on terror, but you liked what he had to say there. Republicans and Democrats both dialed it up. What was so strong to you?
The fact that he was talking about hunting terrorism down wherever it goes, but his actions don't match his rhetoric.
Does the rhetoric work for you? Does the language work for you?
No, he's not being very clear about who exactly the enemy is. Terrorists, yes, but they're exactly Islamic terrorists, and we need to use that language, identify the enemy, and go after him.
Okay, now some of you nodding your head and some of you disagree. Should he use the language Islamic terrorists or extremist Islamists?
As you know, I'm not necessarily as hung up on the semantics as others. I think it's very important for us to maintain a safe country. But I do like that our president has gone about acting on diplomacy as opposed to just willy-nilly bombing. And I agree with the language that he used in his State of the Union tonight.
And I want a show of hands. Who believes that he should isolate it and specify that these are extremist Islamists? Who believes he should? That's a pretty overwhelming response when half of you, again, voted for Barack Obama. Megyn?
What do you make of the fact that we're 7 years into the presidency now, and the president tried to tap into his historic speech back in 2004, there's no black America, there's no red America, and talked about how we shouldn't be demonizing each other? I mean, we've already heard some pundits say he has done plenty of that, and so how can he legitimately call for people to stop? What were your thoughts on it?
Jack?
I think it's words, just words. His actions does not match his action. His words don't match his action. And I think he's worried because he doesn't have a legacy to stand on. And so he's telling us whatever we want to hear at this point.
Jeff?
And at the same time, you know, the president talked about, how many times did he say the word veto tonight, and also reaching across the aisle? Well, which one is it? Does he want to veto, veto, veto? He's talking about the party of no for 6 years. How about the presidency of no now? What about Keystone? What's the problem there? Why can't we actually reach across the aisle? We talked about, as a focus group together, you know, not taking stances or positions, but actually working together and acting.
I'm sorry. I think that our president has been a immensely measured and calm presence, more so than most of the politicians out there. But more than that, you can't say that he hasn't fulfilled a vast majority of his campaign pledges. We just can't do that. He's done it. He's done it over and over again.
Go ahead.
I think that a part of his motivation for using that rhetoric came from current events and things that are happening, the climate in the United States. We have all these issues that are being racially polarized and motivated, and so I think that he was drawing upon what's happening now and using that speech to.
The public's watching this. I want a show of hands. Over the next 2 years, how many of you are optimistic that this White House and this Congress will get something done? Raise your hands if you're optimistic they'll get something done. And this is pretty bad. I mean, we're not the Queen of England here. And you can't get a single person to say that they're optimistic. Megan, I think these are going to be a very tough, perhaps even brutal 2 years between Congress and the president.
We're going to come back to our panel in just a bit.